Is there anything you did where you thought you were in the clear, but years down the line it came to screw you over? Didn't exercise much for like a decade. My partner used to live with their parents, so whenever I came to stay we'd have to be very quiet when trying to shag. We did this for years, before moving in together. One night, we were having supper with their mother and an aunt, and the topic turned to noise. Mother-in-law looked at us, with genuine affection, and said, "These two think that they are so quiet. They wish," and took a big swig of her martini while cackling madly. I miss her. I work at a finance company and there was a computer and fitness reimbursement program. People were buying items, requesting reimbursement and then returning them. The company was able to get return receipts from Apple and Best Buy. Tons of people were fired years afterwards when they thought they were in the clear. To clarify, I was not among them, but it was a big deal. Extended employee discount to relative, accessed through company website. Years go by, and I forget I even did it. Relative abused the discount, spending literally thousands by buying shit for her own friends. Company opens fraud investigation against me as result. While I'm eventually cleared, it basically put me to the front of the line when the company downsized. When I was around 9, I learned the word rape through the internet. From context I thought it meant beat up really badly. I told my dad I rape every bug that comes into the house. This caused him to scream at me, after which I apologized and decided to look up what it actually meant. Almost a decade later my dad introduced me to one of his old friends right after church. The friend shouted out, "Ha! Do you still like raping spiders?" The crowd of churchgoers nearby clearly heard it, and gave me a whole array of dirty looks. I've never felt welcome there since then. Heroin. My friend one time told me he got off on the ground floor, meaning I did my thing, had some struggles with addiction, but was able to clean my act up before I ruined my life, got arrested, etc. A clean break, more or less. About 10 years later. Surprise. You have heck. Not anymore though. Luckily, my insurance covered it. Went through the treatment process and have been free and clear for about 5 years now. All said, I consider myself very fortunate. When 14 I saw one of our cats dragging a bracelet out of my sister's bedroom. I grabbed it and put it on top of a picture frame and forgot I did it. Years later, I was 18. My dad took down the frame, found the bracelet, asked my sister and I why it was up there. I remembered and explained why. Turns out it was mom's bracelet. My sister borrowed without asking and me putting it there and leaving for 4 years made my mom think she lost it. Worst part was they focused on the bracelet on the picture frame for 4 years and not that my sister was stealing jewelry. My high school thought it would be a good idea to start a bank, teach kids about finance and all that. Well, freshman year I took the maximum loan of a hefty $20 and had zero intention of paying them back. Shouldn't loan 14-year-old hood rats money. 4 years later, after moving a bit, ended up back in that school district. Different school though. The day my cap and gown came in they wouldn't give it to me until I drove to my old school and paid them back the $20. Side note, the school bank was only open for 1 week because no one paid them back. Every kid in school took out a $20 loan. When I showed up to pay them back there was a line of about 30 kids in front of me. I broke my hand in high school. I was just messing around with friends and punched a concrete wall, got a boxer's fracture. I told my mom that I fell and landed on my hand weird and broke it. Years later, we are at family dinner with my fiance, who had been friends with me in high school and knew the real story. She didn't know that my family didn't know the real story. Someone mentions when I broke my hand and my fiance says, "Was that when you punched a wall?" Everyone's head snapped at me in a collective what? Still haven't lived that down. Despite dad forbidding me to bury our first family cat in a remote area of the backyard, I did it anyway when he left for work. When our cat died, dad callously put her body in a garbage bag and threw it in the bin for the garbage truck, as I once described here long ago. Years later, he found the place where I had buried our beloved pet's remains. There was a stone above it with her name etched on it that I had created as a memorial. Even then, after all that time, he was furious that I had disobeyed him. When I was younger I got into a card game called Magic: The Gathering. I fell in love Over the next few years I would travel the country for tournaments and made a ton of friends. In the beginning, my childhood best friend and I were playing at a local shop when someone came in and put their bag down next to us and went to the back of the shop. My friend saw a pack of the newest set sticking out of a pocket and took it. I knew it was wrong, but didn't want to throw my friend under the bus. Years later, my adult best friend is a co-owner of the local game shop. I was starting a new job and couldn't make it to all the local tournaments, so I left my cards with the shop owner and another friend I trusted greatly at the time, so they could use the cards and keep my collection up to date. I had about 2k in cards. Everything I could want at the time. My collection was one that brought me immense pride. Then one day I get the call. Aforementioned trusted friend left the binder with all the best cards on a table in the shop and someone walked out with it. A week later was state championships, and my friend spot a unique set of cards that I had in a case. Sharpied black border and alerted art with signature from the artist, Mark Paul, on each Birds of Paradise. My favorite cards out of my entire collection. Vendor stated he couldn't just give the cards back because he bought them, but he'd gladly point the guy out. It ended up being the guy who set his bag down next to my friend when the one pack was stolen. I took this as karma and never truly tried to get back into the game. TL. Doctor, let my idiot friend steal a pack of cards from someone. Years later that person would steal my entire collection. When I was between 6 to 8 years old, I used to wet the bed a lot. Most times, I would tell my mom about it, but I always felt embarrassed. On other occasions, I would feel too ashamed to tell her I peed on myself again. So I would hide my piss-soaked underwear under my bed and switch out my bed sheets with other sheets in my closet and let the pee dry off them. This worked like a charm and I eventually stopped peeing on myself. So when I was like 12 years old, I had completely forgotten about my pissy underwear that I had hidden under my bed years ago. One day, my mom randomly decided to clean my room, and when she looked under my bed, she saw over a dozen crusty yellow stained underwear lying under there. She didn't punish me for it, she actually thought it was pretty funny. She's told it to other family members and friends as sort of a way to humiliate me. I was a truck driver, and I was very by the book. I wouldn't run a load that was overweight. I wouldn't drive with burnt out marker lights. I wouldn't leave without my pre-trip inspection. I even received an award from the company I was driving for when they randomly checked cab videos and saw that I avoided an accident with a third-party vehicle because of my situational awareness. I was able to slow down right before they cut me off, jumping across 3 lanes of traffic to make an exit. At the time, the manager we had loved me because he knew I was a safe bet. Couple years later that manager retires and we get a new one. A new manager who cared more about numbers and money than safety. He wanted me to leave with bad truck and I would never do it. I would insist on having it corrected, which meant delays anywhere from half an hour to 2 or 3 hours. He hated that. One time the delay was enough to cost him his bonus, and he had to cancel a vacation trip somewhere with his family. A few months later the company gets sold, and a couple of months after that they are instructed to reduce staffing by a certain percent. Guess who is one of the first people to be let go? I live in Texas, an at-will state. You can be fired for any reason without explanation or validation. You could walk into work one day and your boss says you have blue eyes and I decided I don't like blue eyes, you're fired. You would have nothing to do about it, except find a new job. He cold done that. But did he? No. He decided to be a vindictive asshole. He manufactured records over a weekend to make it look like I had an accident and failed to report it. Even had a video evidence, never mind that the truck in the video was not the truck that I drove the preceding Friday, and when I said the other driver would collaborate my story if they got in contact with him, he basically said we're not gonna do that. So he marked me as non-rehireable for failure to report an accident, which basically blacklisted me from all respectable trucking companies in the area. I went from making almost $26 an hour to make it $10 an hour. This caused my wife and I to lose our home, a vehicle, and lost our medical insurance, which we were beginning to use to aid in our infertility problems. We wanted a child. 4 years later we are still trying to pick up the financial pieces, and I yearn for the day I can get my r/pro revenge. Took my mom's CC when I was 15 to get past an age gate on a porn site. It said all over it wouldn't charge. Thought I was good for weeks. But noticed my parents on the phone with CC company a lot. Turns out they were being billed like $60 a month and they didn't know what it was. They were about to report it for fraud, and then they finally thought to ask me if I knew what this thing was. I knew I had to come clean, so I did. Was grounded for like a year. Not me, but something I watched happen. Around 2003/4 this software came out that could compare papers to each other to automatically look for plagiarism. A popular class at my university was known as the easy way to get a science gen rec out of the way. It was so popular that all the frats and sororities would send their non-STEM majors to it and then help them along through it. Yeah, so the professor used this new software program and came up with a few hundred clear cases of plagiarism on papers. At a school with a zero tolerance policy on cheating, caught once, get expelled. This included people multiple years post-graduation who got their degrees revoked. Teeth. Yes, I'm addicted to chocolate and always have been, so that didn't help. But I have been on medication on and off for years and thought I had gotten away with it. In the last couple of years I have had more fillings, root canals, and extractions than a normal person would have in 10 years. Seem to break one every month. I was in my early 20s when my wisdom teeth came in. No money, no insurance, no access to public aid. So I fought through the pain and they grew in and pushed my teeth out of alignment. But outside of some prominent canines I thought I was in the clear. That was about 10 years ago, and now that I'm in a better place I'm trying to fix all the issues that one mistake caused. They overcrowded my mouth. They pushed on my molars. In general they've just ruined my teeth by making them harder to clean, and in some cases pressing into other teeth so much that they just outright destroyed them. I was not in the clear. Keep up with your teeth, kids. Seriously. Don't let shit go for too long. When I was first married to my wife, I was also good friends with her brother. Once he went out and got spectacularly drunk in high school or just after. Like many beers and vodka straight from the bottle, shots of tequila. Dangerously drunk. He had come home and was super sick and super hungover for a couple of days. He told his family that it was food poisoning from a local Mexican place that I totally loved. Over the next few years anytime we would want to grab takeout Mexican it would be like Taco Bell or Rubius, and it was super frustrating because we lived in Arizona where local Mexican is usually great. So at some point, he is probably 22 now, we are over at their house and someone suggests getting tequila and I'm like, let's go to the local place. No, it tastes good, but Bill got food poisoning there and we don't trust it anymore. I finally just said, no, that's not the truth. He was not food poisoned. He was massively hungover. I'm sorry but I don't like having to pay the price for his stupid mistakes. The look his mom gave him was dark. And the look he gave me was dark. I walked over and grabbed a pencil and notepad and asked him what he wanted me to pick up. I was out of town, but my dad was visiting the town where I live. He asked to stay in my apartment and that was fine. But then I remembered that I'd left the tape some pretty kinky porn in the VCR. So I just told him the VCR was broken so don't mess with it. Got home, tape still in the VCR, no problem, right? Years later my dad was in hospice on his deathbed, no longer conscious or able to communicate, and we start telling funny/memorable family stories. My stepmother informed me that he, being the nice and handy guy he was, attempted to fix the VCR for me. He quickly found that it wasn't broken, and that's how I found out about the time dad had sex in my bed. I nearly died of embarrassment, but also still laugh about it to this day. When I was 19 or 20 I took out a relatively small, around $2,500 loan to help with living expenses while I was in school. I only made a couple of payments, and then because I was broke and didn't really understand the importance of credit, I just stopped trying to pay it off. I took 1 or 2 calls about it from the bank, but at some point my number changed, and I never heard from them again. Fast forward 11 years, and I'm an adult with a career, obligations, etc. On this particular day I was trying to buy a train ticket to go to a friend's wedding, and my card kept getting declined. I thought it was just a problem with Amtrak's website, but then I tried to buy a drink after work and my card got declined again. So I called my bank. I was told that a hold had been placed on my account by some random law firm and that I had to contact them to get more info. Well, it turns out this firm had acquired my debt, and with interest I now owed something like $7,000, which was a couple thousand more than I had in my account. They had gone to court to get the power to deduct the funds from my account, which I didn't know about because I'd moved a half dozen times since college. They were willing to work out a payment plan in exchange for unfreezing my account, but I had to make an initial payment of $400, which is hard to do with no access to your bank account, and I had to go to their office to sign the agreement in person. By sheer luck, their office was about 2 hours away from the city I currently lived in. If I still lived in my hometown I would have been screwed, so I pawned pretty much all of my electronics to get the money to pay them and make the trip. Even after signing the payment plan, it still took almost a week for the agreement to be accepted in court and for the hold on my bank account to be lifted. So I lived off the few dollars I had remaining and worked from home using a super old laptop that I still had. Pay your bills, kids. My girlfriend and I were on a break, so I had a brief love affair with a coworker I always had a thing for. She was also on a break from her long distance fiance and our relationship was 100% no strings attached because she wasn't planning on staying in the US and because she would never date / marry a white guy. It was the best. Eventually it stopped. She moved back to London and I got back together with my girlfriend. Never told her because they knew each other and I'm a coward. That girlfriend and I eventually break up and go on with our lives. We are both married to other people now. Get a random phone call from her, which is rare. At this point we only send each other polite text messages on birthdays, and she's pissed. I can't believe you slept with Padma. Apparently my ex-girlfriend was on vacation in southern India or something, and ran into my ex-fling. They went out for dinner and I guess I came up, and they compared timelines. Oops.